We have a serious problem.
What is it?
The guests are in danger.
I understand.
They call Min-Hee the ice princess of the Korean underworld, a woman whose jewelry costs more than my entire life. But when her $200,000 gold bracelet hit the floor and she kept walking, I knew it wasn't an accident. I'm Nyelle, just a girl from the States trying to survive a cleaning shift in Seoul. But the moment I picked up that gold, I became the most wanted woman in South Korea. Because this isn't just a bracelet. It's the hardware wallet containing the private keys to the Syndicate's offshore billions. How does a maid with a spray bottle outsmart a room full of professional hitmen? And what happens when the mafia boss realizes the only person who can save his legacy is the woman he never even bothered to look at? If you want to see a masterclass in staying invisible while the world burns, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell. Let's get into the story. The penthouse was a sea of black suits and forced smiles. My name is Nyelle, and in this room, I was just a ghost in a gray uniform. I was clearing empty crystal flutes when Min-Hee, the boss's daughter, brushed past me. She didn't look at me, but as her silk sleeve caught on the edge of a marble pillar, a heavy, intricate gold bracelet slid from her wrist. It hit the carpet with a soft thud. She didn't stop. She didn't even flinch. She just whispered under her breath, "Keep it safe or we both die," before disappearing into the crowd of VIPs. I knelt down, pretending to pick up a fallen napkin. As my fingers closed around the gold, I felt something cold and mechanical. This wasn't just jewelry. It had a USB-C port hidden under a diamond clasp. Suddenly, the music died. The heavy oak doors to the ballroom were locked from the outside. The boss's top lieutenant stepped onto the stage, but he wasn't holding a toast. He was holding a scanner. "The princess has lost her inheritance," he announced, his eyes cold as ice, "and no one leaves this room until I find it." The lieutenant's eyes scanned the room like a hawk looking for a field mouse. I felt the gold bracelet burning a hole in my pocket. If that scanner came near me, the encryption hardware would ping, and I'd be dead before I could even drop my tray. "Everyone, hands on the tables," the lieutenant barked. I stayed low, sliding toward the back of the room where the industrial dishwashers were humming. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing against a small hidden indentation on the inner curve of the bracelet. The bracelet didn't just vibrate. It let out a low-frequency hum that made my teeth ache. I had accidentally triggered the panic protocol. Suddenly, every monitor in the penthouse flickered. A red light began to pulse from the center of the diamond clasp, a beacon that was currently screaming our location to every Syndicate recovery team in Seoul. "We have a signal!" one of the guards yelled, his scanner turning from green to a frantic flashing red. He pointed his finger directly toward the service kitchen. "The maid! Grab her!" I didn't think. I moved. I grabbed a gallon-sized container of industrial-grade degreaser from my cleaning cart and slammed it onto the floor, creating a slick chemical hazard for anyone trying to run. As the first guard slipped and crashed into a stack of crystal, I dove behind the stainless steel prep table. Min-Hee appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, her face pale. She wasn't running away. She was running toward me. "Nyelle, give me the bracelet," she hissed, her eyes dart to the guards scrambling to their feet. "No," I whispered, pulling her down as a silenced bullet shattered a jar of expensive spices above our heads. "If I give it to you, they'll kill you to get it. If I keep it, they have to keep us both alive to get the passcode." I looked at the red pulsing light on the bracelet. It wasn't just a tracker. It was a timer. We had exactly 60 seconds before the self-destruct wiped the data, and the Syndicate's billions, forever. "The freight elevator," I said, pointing to the heavy steel doors at the back. "It's coded for staff only. My keycard still works." We scrambled toward the lift, the sound of heavy boots echoing against the tile. Just as the doors began to groan shut, the lieutenant's hand slammed against the metal. He stared at me through the narrowing gap, his eyes filled with the promise of violence. "You're out of your league, Nyelle," he snarled. The doors hissed shut. We were moving, but we weren't safe. We were trapped in a metal box with a ticking bomb, and the only way out was down into the heart of the dragon's den. The freight elevator lurched to a halt in the sub-basement. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The doors slid open to reveal a concrete tomb swarming with blue light. "Thermal scanners," Min-Hee whispered, pulling back into the shadows. "They set up a perimeter around the garage. If we step out, our body heat will light up their HUDs like a flare." I looked at my industrial cleaning cart. It was loaded with oversized laundry bags, gallon jugs of bleach, and, most importantly, dry ice used for the gala's seafood towers. "Get in," I said, dumping out a bin of dirty linens. "You want me to crawl into a trash bin? I am a Kang," she hissed, though her lip was trembling. "And right now, that name is a death sentence. Get in." I packed the dry ice around the inner lining of the cart. The carbon dioxide would create a cold curtain that masked our thermal signatures. Min-Hee curled into a ball, smaller than I expected, her designer dress bunching up against the cold plastic. I threw a layer of heavy, damp towels over her to further insulate her heat. I stepped out, pushing the cart with the practiced slouching gait of a woman who had spent 10 hours on her feet. I didn't look up. I didn't look at the guards. I just kept my eyes on the grime in the floor tiles. A guard stepped into my path, his high-tech goggles glowing red. "Stop." He swept the scanner over the cart. I held my breath, praying the dry ice was doing its job. On his screen, the cart should have looked like a solid block of blue and purple, completely cold. "Just trash?" he grunted. "Kitchen waste, sir," I said, my voice flat, imitating the tired tone of someone who didn't get paid enough to care about a coup. He waved me through. I pushed the cart another 20 yards into a dark utility closet before I felt the air leave my lungs. I pulled back the towels. Min-Hee was shivering violently, her skin pale and her teeth chattering. "You're okay," I whispered, reaching out to help her up. Suddenly, she grabbed my hand. She wasn't just cold from the ice, she was terrified. "Nyelle," she whispered, her ice princess mask finally cracking. "My father, he's not just a boss, he's sick. That bracelet contains his medical records along with the money. If Min-Ho gets it, he'll declare my father unfit and execute him tonight. I'm not doing this for the billions. I'm doing it so I don't have to bury him." A tear tracked through the dust on her face. For the first time, I didn't see a Syndicate heir. I saw a girl who was about to lose everything. "Then we don't go to the garage," I said, checking the hallway. "The garage is a trap. We go through the skeleton of the building." I pointed upward toward the industrial grate near the ceiling. The HVAC system in this building is a highway for air. And for us, it's the only place their cameras can't see. I boosted Min-Hee up first. She scrambled into the narrow metal tunnel, her silk dress tearing against the galvanized steel. I hauled myself up after her, sliding the grate back into place just as a flashlight beam swept the utility closet below. The air in the shafts was stale and tasted like copper. It was a tight squeeze, dark, cramped, and vibrating with the hum of the massive building-wide fans. "We need to reach the south riser," I whispered, the gold bracelet still pulsing a faint, rhythmic red in my pocket. "It'll take us down to the service tunnels." We crawled for what felt like hours, our knees scraping against the rivets. But then Min-Hee froze. "Nyelle," she breathed, her voice barely a thread. "Stop!" From the darkness ahead, I didn't hear the wind. I heard a sound that didn't belong in a ventilation shaft, the slow, rhythmic click hiss of a tactical respirator. Then a red laser line cut through the dust-filled air, perfectly horizontal, sweeping the tunnel toward us. Min-Ho hadn't just sent guards to the garage, he had sent the spiders, specialized tunnel rats trained in tight space extraction. They have thermal scopes, I whispered, my heart hammering. In here, there's nowhere to hide. Wait, Min-Hee said, her fingers fumbling with a loose wire on the wall of the duct. This is the primary cooling line for the server room. If we rupture the coolant pipe, the aerosol will blind their sensors. It'll freeze us, too, I cautioned. Better a frostbite than a bullet, she snapped, the ice princess returning for a brief, sharp moment. I gripped the edge of a heavy metal junction box. On the count of 3, we kicked. The pipe buckled, and a high-pressure spray of liquid nitrogen mist hissed into the shaft. The temperature plummeted instantly, turning the tunnel into a white-out blizzard. Through the fog, I saw the red laser sight go wild, dancing frantically as the thermal sensor was overwhelmed by the flash freeze. I lunged forward in the chaos, swinging my heavy-duty flashlight. It connected with something hard, a helmet. The spider fell back, but more clicks were echoing from the junctions behind us. We weren't just running from a coup anymore, we were being hunted in the dark by things that thrived in it. We dropped out of a trash chute into a damp alley in Itaewon. The cold air hit us like a slap, but the smell of grilled meat and diesel meant we were finally out of the tower. Min-Hee stood up, adjusting her shredded silk dress. Even covered in soot, she looked like she belonged on a runway. Her posture was too perfect, her gaze too sharp. In this neighborhood, she stood out like a diamond in a coal mine. "We need a car," Min-Hee said, reaching for a phantom phone that wasn't there. "I'll call my father's private line from a hotel." "No," I said, grabbing her arm and pulling her into the shadow of a glowing orange pojangmacha street stall. The moment you walk into a hotel, facial recognition picks you up. To the Syndicate, you're a target. To the police, you're a missing person. Right now, you need to be nobody. I dragged her into a 24-hour thrift shop. I tossed her a faded, oversized hoodie and a pair of baggy cargo pants. "Put these on, and take off those heels." "These are hand-stitched Italian," I interrupted. "These are trackers for your ankles. Throw them in the bin." I watched her transform. I taught her the worker's slouch, shoulders down, eyes on the pavement, phone in hand, but never looking up. I showed her how to walk through a crowd without making eye contact, a skill I'd perfected in Philly and honed in Seoul. "Why is everyone ignoring us?" she whispered, huddled inside the scratchy hoodie as we sat on a crowded subway train. "Because in a city this fast, no one looks at the people who serve them. You've spent your life being the center of the room. Now, your life depends on being the furniture." Suddenly, the subway's digital screens flickered. A public safety alert popped up with Min-Hee's face. The caption claimed she had been kidnapped by an armed American woman. A man sitting across from us looked up from his phone, his eyes darting towards Nyelle's braided hair and then to the girl in the hoodie beside her. He began to reach for his jacket pocket. "Nyelle," Min-Hee hissed, her hand tightening on mine. "Keep your head down," I breathed, "and get ready to move on to the next stop. The Ice Princess is officially the most famous face in Korea, and my face is the one they're blaming." "Stop looking at the screen," I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. "If you look up, they see fear. If you look down, you're just another tired girl on her way home." Min-Hee's knuckles were white as she gripped the subway pole. Every pair of eyes on that train felt like a searchlight. The Ice Princess was melting, and if we didn't get off at the next stop, we were both going to be headline news, or worse, a closed case file in Min-Ho's desk. Nyelle and Min-Hee are officially ghosts in their own city, but the clock is ticking. The Syndicate has turned the entire public against them, and the Bracelet is seconds away from a permanent data wipe. To save the boss, they have to go where the law doesn't reach. Can a maid from Philly and a fallen princess navigate the digital underworld of Seoul? If you're ready to see them fight back, smash that like button and subscribe right now. Comment "unlock" to see the secrets hidden inside that gold. We blurred into the neon chaos of Yongsan Electronics Market. This wasn't the shiny mall that tourists saw. This was the back alley, a labyrinth of narrow corridors packed with illegal chips, modified consoles, and men who asked no questions if the cash was right. "We're looking for the ghost," Min-Hee whispered, her hood pulled low. "He's the only one who can intercept the remote wipe signal before the Syndicate servers reach it." We reached a stall that sold nothing but vintage vacuum tubes. I pushed a hidden buzzer under the counter, and the back wall slid open to reveal a room that looked like a digital war zone. Cables hung from the ceiling like vines, and a dozen servers hummed in a climate-controlled rack. A teenager with bleached hair and goggles looked up. "The diamond bracelet? You've got guts bringing that here. Min-Hee just put out a kill order for anyone who even looks at that MAC address." "Can you stop the wipe?" I asked, slamming the gold bracelet onto the table. "I can create a localized black hole, a jamming field that blocks all incoming signals from the Syndicate's towers," the hacker said, his fingers already flying. "But I have to crack the physical lock first, and the moment I start, the Syndicate will get a last known location ping." "Do it," Min-Hee commanded. As the hacker plugged the bracelet into his rig, the monitors began to glow with lines of scrolling green code. But then, a red warning flared across every screen. "They're not just wiping it," the hacker gasped. "They've activated the overload protocol. If I don't bypass the thermal failsafe in 3 minutes, the battery in that bracelet is going to vent. It's not just a wallet anymore, it's a grenade." I looked at the door. Outside, the quiet hum of the market had changed. I heard the synchronized click of safeties being switched off. The last known location ping had worked. They weren't coming to talk, they were coming to level the building. 30 seconds to bypass, the hacker yelled, sweat dripping onto his keyboard. "If I don't get this firewall down, we're all going to be a crater in the electronics district." I stood by the door, gripping a heavy metal wrench I'd pulled from a tool bench. "Just do it." The green bar on the monitor hit 100%. The red overload warning vanished, replaced by a steady, glowing blue interface. The data was safe. But as the hacker scrolled through the recently accessed logs, Min-Hee gasped. "That's impossible," she whispered, leaning into the screen. "What is it?" I asked, my eyes darting between her and the door. "The remote wipe signal," she said, her voice trembling. "It wasn't sent from Min-Hee's office. It was sent using a private security bypass code. Only 3 people have that code. My father, myself, and Jun-Ho." My blood went cold. Jun-Ho was the boss's head of security. He was the man who had taught Min-Hee to shoot, the man who had guarded her since she was a child. He wasn't just a bodyguard. He was family. "He's the one tracking us," I realized, the pieces clicking together. "That's why they found us in the vents. That's why they're here now. He's not following a signal from the bracelet. He's following the tracker in your own necklace." Min-Hee's hand flew to the small jade pendant around her neck. Her face crumpled. The one person she thought was her shield was actually the hunter's spear. "He's outside, isn't he?" As if in answer, a rhythmic thump, thump, thump echoed through the floorboards. It wasn't the clumsy boots of the street gang. It was the heavy, deliberate stride of a professional. A voice boomed through the thin walls of the stall, calm, cold, and heartbreakingly familiar. "Min-Hee, give the girl the bracelet and come outside. I can still tell your father you are a victim. I can still save you." Min-Hee looked at me, her eyes wet, but hardening into flint. She reached up, ripped the jade necklace from her throat, and threw it into a bucket of scrap metal. "He's not saving anyone," she whispered. "He's cleaning the house for his new master." I looked at the hacker. "Is there a back way out?" "Only the freight chute," he said, pointing to a dark hole in the floor, "but it drops straight into the loading docks, and Jun-Ho has the perimeter locked down." "Then we stop running," I said, tightening my grip on the wrench. Let's show him what happens when you corner a girl from the north side. The freight chute dumped us into the freezing dampness of the Yongsan loading docks. Ahead, rows of rusted shipping containers stretched like a steel graveyard. Behind us, the heavy clank of the service door opening told us Jun-ho was right on our heels. "Nyelle, we can't outrun him," Min-Hee panted, her boots splashing through oily puddles. "He's a Special Forces veteran. He'll pick us off before we hit the street." "I don't plan on running," I said, my eyes scanning a nearby maintenance shed. "I plan on making this place unbreathable." I broke the lock on the shed and grabbed 2-gallon-sized jugs, one of industrial bleach and another of concentrated ammonia. Warning: mixing bleach and ammonia creates toxic chloramine vapor, a deadly chemical reaction that Nyelle is about to weaponize. "Listen to me," I told Min-Hee. "Go to that blue container at the end of the row. When I whistle, hold your breath and don't stop running until you reach the fence." I poured the bleach into a wide, shallow drainage tray near the entrance of the alleyway. As I heard Jun-ho's footsteps round the corner, I uncapped the ammonia. "Nyelle," Jun-ho's voice echoed, sounding disappointed. "You're a clever girl, but you're fighting for a dying throne. Give me the bracelet, and I'll make sure you get a one-way ticket back to the States." "Sorry, Jun-ho," I yelled back. "I never liked the way you treated the staff." I slammed the ammonia into the tray. Instantly, a thick, yellowish-white cloud began to billow from the mixture. The wind caught it, swirling the toxic vapor directly into the narrow corridor where Jun-ho was standing. I heard him cough, a harsh, racking sound, as the gas hit his lungs. What is this?" "A little something from the cleaning closet," I shouted. Through the haze, I saw him stumble, his tactical goggles fogging up. He tried to raise his weapon, but the gas was blinding him, searing his throat. I didn't wait. I grabbed a heavy fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it into the tray, causing a splash that sent a fresh wave of fumes toward him. "Now, Min-Hee, run!" We sprinted through the steel maze, the sound of Jun-ho's desperate coughing fading behind us. We reached the perimeter fence, but just as I was about to boost Min-Hee over, a secondary alarm began to blare. The shipping yard gates were sliding shut. We weren't out yet, and Jun-ho wasn't the only one hunting us. A black SUV roared to a halt at the main exit, and 4 more men in suits stepped out, their silenced pistols drawn. The gates were grinding shut with the sound of a closing tomb. The SUV's headlights cut through the chemical fog like twin daggers. "The fence is too high," Min-Hee gasped, her eyes darting between the gunmen and the data link on the bracelet. "Nyelle, I need a stable signal for 60 seconds to dump the ledger into the public cloud. If I move, the upload fails." "Then stay behind that tire rack," I said, my voice dropping into that cold, Philly street calm. "And whatever you do, don't look up until I say so." I grabbed a discarded flare from the maintenance shed and a heavy chain. I wasn't a soldier, but I was a ghost, and I knew this yard better than the men in the suits. I ran in the opposite direction, toward a stack of volatile field drums. "Over here, you suits!" I screamed, striking the flare. The red light bathed the yard in a hellish glow. I was the perfect target. The 4 gunmen pivoted, their silenced barrels tracking my movement. Zip, zip, zip. Bullets sparked off the pavement at my heels. 30 seconds now! Min-Hee's voice was a frantic whisper over the comms. I dove behind a rusted container just as the SUV roared toward me. I knew they wanted the bracelet alive, but they wanted me dead. I used the chain to lash a heavy propane tank to a rolling dolly and kicked it down the incline toward the approaching car. "She's got a bomb!" one of them yelled. They braked hard, swerving to avoid the tank. That was all the time I needed. I doubled back through the shadow zones of the yard, the places where the overhead lights didn't reach. I moved like smoke, sliding under trailers and scaling a ladder to the top of a container row. From above, I saw the progress bar on Min-Hee's screen. 85%, 90%. Suddenly, Jun-Ho emerged from the fog, his face red and blistered from the gas, his eyes filled with a murderous clarity. He didn't go for me. He saw the blue light of the monitor behind the tire rack. He raised his weapon toward Min-Hee. "No!" I roared. I didn't have a gun. I had the fire extinguisher. I jumped from the top of the container, 30 feet of gravity turning me into a human projectile. I slammed the heavy metal canister into Jun-Ho's shoulder just as he pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, shattering a light fixture. We hit the ground in a tangle of limbs and steel. "Upload complete," the bracelet chimed. A second later, every phone in the yard, every phone in Seoul, vibrated. The ledger, the medical records, and the recording of Min-Ho's betrayal were no longer a secret. They were the world's most trending topic. The silence that followed the upload was heavier than the gunfire. Across the city, the Syndicate's digital empire was collapsing in real time. In the shipping yard, the gunmen stared at their phones in horror. Their names, their bank accounts, and their crimes were being broadcast to the Seoul Metropolitan Police and every rival family in the country. Jun-Ho stared at me, his finger still on the trigger, but the fire in his eyes had died out. He knew the rules of the game. Once the secret is out, the hitman is useless. "You're just a maid," he wheezed, clutching his shattered shoulder. "I'm the maid who just took out the trash," I replied, standing over him as the sirens began to wail in the distance. 1 month later, the penthouse was different. The gold trim was gone, replaced by reinforced steel and state-of-the-art encryption hubs. The Ice Princess had officially taken her father's seat while he recovered in a private, high-security wing. I stood on the balcony, overlooking the Han River. I wasn't wearing a gray uniform anymore. I was wearing a tactical matte black, my hair braided back tight. On my wrist sat the gold bracelet, not as jewelry, but as my badge of office. Min-Hee stepped out beside me. She didn't look like a girl who needed saving anymore. She looked like a queen who had found her sword. "The board tried to protest your appointment," Min-Hee said, a small, dangerous smile on her lips. "They said a foreigner, especially a common worker, couldn't hold the title of the Shadow. They said it was against tradition." "And what did you tell them?" I asked. "I told them that tradition is what almost got us killed, and that the woman who outran the spiders and blinded a Special Forces veteran with bleach is the only one I trust to handle the cleanup." She handed me a new dossier. It wasn't about cleaning floors. It was a list of the remaining moles in the Syndicate's European branches. My first official mission. "They won't see you coming, Nyelle," she whispered, "because to them, you're still invisible." I looked out at the city. Seoul was a different place when you weren't looking up from the bottom. I realized I hadn't just survived, I had evolved. The maid from Philly was gone. The shadow heir had been born. "Let them keep looking at the throne," I said, adjusting the comms in my ear. "By the time they look at the shadows, it'll already be too late." From the laundry room to the war room, Nyelle proved that the most dangerous person is the one you never bother to notice. She didn't just save a legacy, she built her own. Would you have the guts to pick up that bracelet, or would you have looked the other way? If you want to see Nyelle's first mission as the Shadow, smash that like button and subscribe right now. Don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss the next chapter of the Syndicate Wars. Comment Shadow if you're ready for the next mission. Thanks for riding with us.
This view is incredible.
It's breathtaking.
Look at the river.
It's beautiful.